Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something pretty wild: how a polluted river pushed two nations, Arvania and Bavaria, right to the brink of war. Seriously, it's a perfect storm of an environmental crisis spiraling into a full-blown military standoff.
All right, so let's just dive right in. What's happening right now on the border between these two countries? Well, it's tense. It's dangerous. It's a situation that's unfolding as we speak.
12 kilometers. I want you to remember that number, because right now, that's the only thing separating thousands of soldiers, armored vehicles, the whole shebang, all of it massed on both sides of this border. Yeah, that's it. That tiny gap is all that's holding back a potentially devastating war and preserving a peace that's lasted for decades. So you have to ask, right? How did we get here? How did things fall apart so fast? Okay, to really get a handle on this military standoff, we've got to go back just 6 months. Because this whole thing didn't start with guns or political threats. Nope, it started with something way more basic: the water in the Blue River. And this timeline, wow, it just lays out how incredibly fast everything went south. Look at this. For almost 50 years, this 1974 agreement worked. It kept the peace. But then you see Bavaria's industry starts to boom, and with it the pollution. And bam, 6 months ago, Arvania's detects these dangerous chemicals in their water, and that's it. The crisis officially begins.
You know, the crazy part about all this? There was already a system in place to stop exactly this from happening. It was called the Central Basin Environmental Accord. Both countries signed it. It was literally designed to prevent cross-border pollution. But when people started looking into it, turns out it was just being ignored.
So the Regional Water Commission digs in, and what they find is, well, it's bad. It's really bad. We're not just talking about a little pollution. No, Valerian factories were breaking all the rules. They weren't warning anyone downstream. And get this, they were actually blocking inspectors from getting in. This wasn't an accident. They were actively covering it up.
So, with diplomacy going nowhere and with poison literally flowing into their country, you can imagine the pressure cooker that was Arvania. It was reaching a boiling point. The government had to act. In this chart, it shows you exactly what that pressure looked like. You've got farmers, their livelihoods at stake. You've got protesters in the cities. The political opposition is smelling blood in the water, and environmental groups are sounding the alarm. I mean, everyone was demanding action. It's a classic case of domestic politics forcing a government to make a really big move on the world stage.
Okay, so Arvania makes its move, but they're smart about it. It's a two-step response. First, they prepare a sanctions package, and then they launch it. But here's the key, and this is super important. The sanctions were targeted. This wasn't a blanket punishment for all of Bavaria. The idea was to hit the specific people, the industrial leaders who were causing the problem.
But, and this is where the story takes a huge, dangerous turn. Those sanctions, the ones that were supposed to be like a surgical strike, well, they ended up being more like a match on a pile of dry wood. They just lit this nationalist fire in Bavaria. Just look at the disconnect here. On one hand, you have Arvania using targeted sanctions to enforce a treaty they both signed. Pretty straightforward, right? But Bavaria's response? Whoa. They completely flipped the script. They called it an attack on their national sovereignty, a direct assault. And this quote, "Foreign pressure requires a firm military stance," that became the rallying cry. It was brilliant in a way. It totally changed the conversation. Suddenly, nobody was talking about pollution anymore. They were talking about patriotism and defending the nation from Arvania. The whole environmental issue just got weaponized for political points. A total game changer. And this wasn't just talk. Bavaria moved fast, turning all that tough political talk into some very real and very threatening military action. They start these massive military exercises right in the same province where the polluting factories are. And these aren't just any old drills. They're bigger than ever before and closer to the Arvanian border than ever before. We're talking satellite images confirming artillery, armored vehicles, drones, the works. And that right there brings us full circle, back to that military buildup just 12 kilometers from the border. So here's the bottom line. Arvania is now completely trapped. They started with an environmental problem, it became a diplomatic problem, and now they're staring down the barrel of a military threat. They're being forced to think like generals about a problem that started with dirty water. And what makes this whole situation impossible is that inside Arvania's own government, nobody can agree on what's actually happening. You've got the military saying, this is a real threat, they're trying to intimidate us.
Then the diplomats at the foreign ministry are like, it's probably just for show for their own people. Intelligence is throwing their hands up saying the data is murky, and the energy folks are freaking out about a potential attack on a major dam. And that's the nightmare, isn't it? Each one of those interpretations requires a totally different playbook. If you guess wrong, you could accidentally start a war over what was just a bluff. Or you could get caught completely flat-footed by a real attack. The stakes couldn't be higher. So that leaves us with the billion-dollar question, the one at the very heart of this crisis. You're Arvania. The threat is unclear. Your own advisors can't agree. What do you do? There are no easy answers here. Just a really stark reminder of how thin that line between peace and war can be.